Hello and welcome to Avatar, The Last Korra. I'm Hana.
And I'm David, and today we got a little bonus episode for you. We're going to be talking about M. Night Shyamalan's amazing cinematic disaster,
His
The Last
disaster
Airbender.
piece. It's a disaster
Yes,
piece.
absolutely. And so we've been pronouncing our names a little differently to be more authentic to
Yeah.
our pronunciation origins. We don't want to be, colonizers. We want to be authentic, just like M. Night Shyamalan.
Yeah.
Um,
Because that's what this movie really just knocks it out of the park with, is authenticity.
right. Well, I mean, here's the thing: is that like it is kind of a movie of contradictions. That
Yeah.
the idea behind the film was that to make it like as diverse as possible, but it ends up with these white leads. Um,
I mean, is it the goal to make it diverse as possible?
well, I can give you like some quotes from the director to kind of like
Okay.
give you an idea. Here's M. Night Shyamalan talking about Avatar being like an anime, and he's like, anime is an art form where facial features are ambiguous and mixed. Noah Ringer, who plays Ong, looks identical to Ong. People would tell him that he was the character.
Uh-huh.
That's not his friends being racist, says M. Night Shyamalan. That's the way he was drawn. There is no Inuit woman in the world that looks like Katara.
Oh
No
my
one.
god.
But Katara looks identical to my daughter, referring
Oh my
to
god.
his younger daughter who he saw dressing up as Katara, which is what gave him the inspiration to do this this movie. So obviously important to him on some level is the idea of being able to see brown skin characters, more brown skin characters than are in a typical you know Hollywood blockbuster.
Right.
But but
He
and
somehow
yet
botches it so
we still can't get
badly.
well, it's like all the speaking characters are played by young white actors, and all of the
And Dave,
non-speaking characters and all the villains or anti-heroes are played by people of color.
yeah.
So it is very bizarre watching like any scene in one of the water tribes where there's just like one white dude uh, doing a speaking part and then surrounded by nothing but Inuit or Inuit looking
Like Asian people,
semi-authentic people,
yeah.
Asian people for sure. Um, yeah, it's difficult, and so like I think race, whitewashing is the most significant like contribution of this film, is that everyone had another thing to talk about whitewashing with.
Right, right. Um,
Um, any other thoughts before we jump right into how this movie is shot, how it's
I
made?
I I do want to make the note, because like lots of people give this movie flack for cutting out a ton of stuff from the show. However, like we do have to acknowledge that it's a huge challenge to try to cut down like a full season of a television show into like a 2-hour movie.
Well,
Um,
2 hour movie, maybe it's doable. I mean, the original script apparently was like 7 hours long before they were trying to like cut it down. And then
yeah,
once they had the shooting script, that was 2 hours. And then they got
they've cut it
to
down.
the
I
end
think
of
it's like,
shooting. Well, it was in post production that they
mm-hmm.
had this decision where, Avatar had just come out, so they changed the title to The Last
Ugh,
Airbender.
I know.
And Avatar was a huge success because of its marketing of its 3D technology, and so
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of movies were doing post production 3D conversions to try and get some of that
The
some of
Avatar
that
dough.
buzz, the Avatar dough. So in order to rush out this conversion, they decided that they would cut out 30 minutes, almost like entirely like effects shots and things that would take a long time to render in 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really what causes the sense that it's really a cramped movie, a rushed movie,
Yeah.
a movie with a lot of missing parts.
And like the fascinating thing, like we'll talk more in depth about this as we sort of go through the movie, but the fascinating thing to me is the idea that like they left out some like really key character moments from the show in to replace them with just like these nonsense scenes that go
Of
nowhere.
exposition.
Yeah. Or like scenes of exposition, or scenes where it's just like, why, what is the scene like, why does this have a purpose? Like, why do we need to see, you know, this versus something else that might have
Okay, I'm
developed the
interested in
characters
that
more?
because I felt like almost every scene was like just so filled with exposition that you couldn't cut anything more. To cut it any more would just make it a totally unwatchable
Right, like
mess.
here's the thing, I'm not saying that cutting more is the solution to fixing it, because you couldn't cut more without
Right, but
adding
why was
something
this in the
back in.
script at
Right,
all?
but
You're
like, why
saying.
was this the thing that we decided was important instead of something else that again would have organically delivered exposition, or you know, developed the characters at all, because
Right.
the characters are cardboard cutouts there to be moved along by the plot.
Um, Also, just to introduce our relationship with this movie, I did not see this movie when it came out in
Me
theaters.
either.
I remember when it was announced, which I think was close to the end of book 3 being released, sort
Yes.
of right around when the finale was happening.
Yes.
I was immediately like, M. Night Shyamalan, you could make the greatest adaptation of all time, and we would still nitpick this to death. It's just so. This is an impossible task to convert something
Right.
so like full of joy and so youthful and, you know, animated, and convert it
Right.
to a gritty live action reboot. And you remember what things were like in the 2010s. Like
Oh, it
everything
was
was dark.
all, yeah, it was all gritty live action reboots. Like,
I mean,
that's all everything was.
it was so frustrating, and like that this would be another in a long list. Like, you know, it couldn't even really be a kids movie. It would just be like another YA adaptation, like, I don't know, Golden Compass or something was like the
Yeah.
best it could aspire to be. And you know,
Uh,
but even then, I think it fails, this film.
oh yeah, for
So
sure.
do you want to just jump right in?
Yeah. How do we start Avatar? Or not Avatar, The Last
I think
Airbender.
we start right at the beginning. It opens with some special Nickelodeon logos. So they were clearly trying to make this like the tent pole of Nickelodeon pictures, which now
Right.
does not really exist very much. And they recreated the opening shots with the, you know, the different bending styles almost like identically. And I think, you know, it was kind of impressive how that the attention to detail there, that they were willing to recreate the title sequence.
But it's I think, at least for me, this is where we see the first like cracks of the animation of these bending moves, and these different martial arts styles. They are so fluid and like, you know,
what it
like
reminds
in
me
the
of the
animation.
most, what it reminds me of the most is the Full Metal Alchemist movie. If anybody saw that.
Oh God.
The movements don't really translate to live action super well. It might have been better for them to just kind of try and re-choreograph things
to flow
their own martial arts style, you know,
right,
still with the same, you know, delineation of, you know, Tai Chi for water bending and whatever the other styles were for the other types of bending. Sorry.
Right.
But you know, if they had put their own spin on it and maybe not have to do exactly what we saw in the intro.
And also, you know, so not only that, I don't feel like the movements correspond as well to what bending is actually happening, you know, like the special effects.
That connection.
Yeah, the special effects look just like special effects, you know, like they don't look like something that is actually this character is having an effect on, you know.
Right. And it's not that they could have done better. I mean, ILM, who is doing the effects work, you know, I think they did a decent job with the water effects and the earth effects and the air. I don't know. I thought that it was decent enough for what was possible at the time. It's just it's impossible to make it not look like CGI.
I feel like
about in the Uncanny Valley episode.
I feel like that's such an excuse though, because like Avatar had come out well before this had in theaters.
Well, okay, but this movie has the budget of like a Thor, not like an Avatar, and
Sure.
additionally, Avatar doesn't even look that great today. So it's like I don't think that we can really criticize them for doing bad special effects. It's just bad editing, bad 3D conversion, bad
Yeah.
everything else.
I mean, I would say like the textures on everything and like the way they move are not bad. It's just they don't actually correspond to what the human characters are doing, and like that
it's
just,
not
like,
as fluid as what's possible in 2D animation. I just think it's not possible to do 3D animation to look the same as what traditional, actual cell animation looks like.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I feel like they could have done better than they did is my thought.
Okay. So the next thing that we see is a text crawl, but it's just like Katara is also reading everything that's on screen. So it just makes you think like, well, if you're going to do it in voiceover, why not just shoot something as well to show?
Yeah.
Because like it's not like,
it doesn't make any sense.
It's like having subtitles, but nothing that they're subtitling.
Right.
But anyway, in that text crawl, we get a bunch of exposition, but it's all done very bizarrely. M. Night Shyamalan, if you ask him about this, he describes it as like his dialogue has like an accent. So sometimes people don't like his dialogue. I call it just bad dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, it's not even that it's like bad dialogue, because it's not even dialogue. It's just exposition. Like it's just like a voiceover and then words, and it's
right. I mean, it's a monologue,
nothing.
But it's still supposed to be coming from a character in some sense. It's supposed to be motivated, and it's not supposed to be like, great respect was afforded to all those that could bend their natural element. Like, very stilted, not how a teenage girl would talk or describe the world.
Right.
I don't know.
It's not great.
Right.
And then we open on them.
Yeah, we open on Katara bending water, but we see the water first. So it is very effects first kind of movie.
Kind of, yeah.
Like literally. And the water's like dripping everywhere, but it's not like, it doesn't seem like there's any limit to how much water is dripping off of it.
Yeah, like it doesn't get like any smaller.
Yeah, it almost feels like misrendered, because it's like the water is moving and like what seems to be the entire mass of the water is falling out of it.
Right, but then it doesn't.
Right, and then it drops off the bottom of the screen and Sokka's head pops up and he's wet.
You can barely even tell that he's wet, like it's so...
Well, because he's literally wet with actual water, which doesn't look the same as animated water.
No, I know, but I'm saying like this is such an ineffective filmmaking choice.
Right. This first scene is like really, I struggle with just how bad the acting is.
Yeah.
Or maybe it's the choreography or something is off, because Katara is like, I'm sorry. And then like Sokka is just like charging at her, but there's no like momentum to that movement, because there's once he gets there, he just like grabs her wrists and you don't know what he's gonna do. I was like, is he gonna like smack her? Like, what is gonna happen?
Like you get like absolutely no context for who these two characters are until she said, I can control it better when I think about mom, which, okay, sure, fine.
Right. That doesn't come back in any way.
It doesn't come back. Like, just
her
totally...
Her learning to be a better waterbender doesn't even come back. She is just sort of suddenly better at the end, because we don't have time to do episodes like the waterbending scroll, or these things where we actually see her progressing. It's more like, just she's bad at the beginning and then good at the end.
Right.
And Sokka is not like cracking jokes or being wise. He really is, you know, as all other reviews of this have shown, he's a really humorless kind of terrible character who serves no purpose.
Absolutely zero purpose. Fully agree.
Let's see. There's more narrative exposition done through voiceover. There's a war. The dad is gone. He doesn't come up. He's not relevant to the story. The war is just a thing that you can describe. It's not like something that we learn about as it's by seeing its effects. We
never see the war at all.
No. Until, you know, the final scene where there's an invasion, but
but that's it.
Unfortunately, my brother isn't the best hunter in the world. We sometimes go hunting for food because food is scarce. We have to explain everything that we're doing.
Right.
We have to explain all the backstory. Nothing is shown visually.
Yeah.
Very frustrating.
I feel like it would almost be better. Like I understand that it's just like this exposition, but I almost feel like it would be so much better if you even just removed Katara's voiceover, you know?
Right, but then you would lose that they were bad hunters.
But like, why does that matter? It doesn't matter.
I have no idea.
Like, this is what I'm saying. Like, why is this scene of Sokka being a bad hunter in there instead of like Katara getting mad at like sexist comments? You know, where's my sexism? I guess
they thought that it wouldn't track for audiences. Like, why are they out here? Why are they out here in a boat? I guess they thought, you know,
because they're fucking Inuit. Like, what do you want?
Right. Well, he's fishing in that one. In this one, he's hunting, but he's bad at it.
Yeah. Then they see glowing under the ice.
Yeah, and it just kind of pops up. It's not like caused by Katara's waterbending in this version, which I guess is fine.
Though.
And then,
yeah, go ahead.
Like, Katara is like about to like hit the sphere, and Sokka says, "Katara, do not hit that sphere."
And then she does. And this is one of the great unintentionally funny moments when she hits it and just gets like rocketed backwards instantly.
I mean, maybe that's supposed to be funny. It is
really
silly.
It's so funny though.
It's just a bizarrely cartoony visual for what is otherwise, you know, a pretty grounded visually film.
Right, like that's what I don't understand about the film is there are moments in it where I'm like, is this intentionally funny or is this just funny because someone made a wild choice, you know?
Right. Another thing with like the blocking is that when Katara grabs Sokka's boomerang to hit the ice with, Sokka kind of like reaches his hand back to put it away, but he doesn't really put it away. He just kind of hands it to Katara.
Right. I love when she just like yoink grabs it and then runs at the sphere.
Yeah. I also like it when Ong. We should start using the correct pronunciations for the movie. Okay. Ong is just like laying there, kind of half conscious, and Katara, or what is it?
No, I think they just call her Katara for the most part.
Katara is like, you know, what's your name? Who are you? And then it just like cuts to Sokka getting his face smashed in by Appa's tail, and then it cuts back to the village. So like we never see any resolution to that. I'm guessing there was some like awkward comedy there that was cut out to, you know, as part of that 30 minutes that was cut out of the movie.
To trim it down, yeah. But the name thing, we'll come back to that in a little bit because that just gets wilder and wilder. Then there's the infamous hut scene that, you know, I'm sure if you've ever watched a review of this movie, this is the scene that everyone points to as just like all of the most baffling like character choices and like directing choices of this whole movie.
It's like even the establishing shot is like wrong. It's like we've cut to like this Inuit village and you see a bunch of, you know, Inuit people like pointing at something off screen. We have no idea what that is. I guess maybe it was at them arriving, or maybe it was at the Fire Nation ships in the distance. We don't know.
Or Appa, like
maybe it was Appa, but we can't see it. And then it cuts into a tent, which we have no idea where that tent is, and it's just shirtless Ong. and he's fully awake and he's chipper, and it seems like he's been awake for a really long time.
Right. And instead of asking like his name or anything, Katara just immediately is like, how did you get out there? And then in the most like blasé voice possible is like, oh yeah, you know, I just ran away from home. It's fine. Like,
it wasn't very smart. I was just upset. I'm fine now.
Which, like, clearly is, like, M. Night Shyamalan's takeaway from watching these first few episodes where he was like, oh, yeah, that wasn't smart. Like, he should really acknowledge that, you know? And then just, like, puts it into dialogue.
No, I mean, like, Aang, you know, in the cartoon, he's not, you know, in those first episodes, he is very chipper and he's kind of not thinking about, like, how bad it was. So his explanation for running away has to be just like, I was just being stupid. Because he doesn't have time to explain that it was, like, caused by the trauma of whatever. We'll get into it. But I don't know. The weirdest thing is just, like, the editing and the shot composition in this one. Because, like, you know, Aang's face is, like, giant in the screen. Or, sorry, Katara's face is, like, giant in the screen. And Aang's is, like, really tiny and far away. And they keep cutting back and forth. And all the dialogue is on whoever is not speaking in the scene.
Right.
Like it'll be Katara speaking off screen while we're looking at Aang, and then switch. Ong, and then switch. So I don't know what, you know, did they just have to replace all the dialogue because it wasn't working?
I don't know.
Like, because we do, I don't know,
because we do see some there are like one or two shots in there where whoever is speaking is on camera, but it's definitely more of what you were describing. And then it ends in the wildest way possible.
Right, he just reaches over to grab his staff, but then it cuts away before we see why he's grabbing his staff, or
right, or even
it cuts to
like,
boats.
Right, it's like cuts mid-action to boats for no reason. Like,
right, well, you're supposed to cut on action. That's one of the rules of continuity filmmaking. But
right, but like
but
it's gotta be matching action, you know, and like the action is supposed to mean something. Like this is nothing.
Exactly.
This is like someone forgot to yell cut, and he's just like, should I do the thing with the staff now?
Like, this so is the first time that we get mention of the Fire Nation and their machines.
Yes, can we talk about this? Because this is, I don't understand this choice at all.
Well, they were like, well, they wouldn't have a word for, like, you know,
tanks.
You know, well, they don't show any tanks is the other thing. But they wouldn't have a word for, like, whatever these giant metal boats are, because the only boats that they know are their canoes.
Right.
So I guess they just called them their machines.
But like
I think they would probably just call them their ships.
Yeah, they're just big ships. Like, they're big boats, you know? Like, it doesn't make any
their
sense.
Machines, again. The Fire Nation and their machines. Because I guess we're trying to situate them as, you know, opposed to the more natural world. You know, they're an abomination to nature with their machines.
And they're not in touch with the spirit world and the spiritual aspects of nature and the elements.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big part of what M. Night Shyamalan liked about the you know, the source material, was how spiritual it was, and how, you know, we can finally make, you know, a trilogy of blockbuster films that's about more than just, you know, beating the bad guys.
Right.
Which is true. I mean, that's what the show was for a lot of people, but the movie is just kind of giving lip service to it.
Right, because we never really see the Fire Nation like destroying nature the way we do in the series. You know, we never see them like the worst we see them do is like put some earthbenders in an earth jail that they could have broken out of at any time, and then like attack the Northern Water Tribe. Like that is, and like make fun of Zuko. Like that's all we see the Fire Nation do. Like they're not a particularly intimidating threat ever.
I agree. So they show up, and Zuko, played by Dev Patel, who I think does a decent enough performance.
Yeah.
There's a lot of angst, certainly, which is true to the character.
Very Zuko. I mean, I think of anyone in this film, he definitely turns in the best performance.
I actually think that the actor playing Eero is a little bit better. I think that he gives a very,
He
sort
just
of wise.
Yeah, but his
Sensibility.
character just has like nothing to do most of the time, and like what he does have to do is just so bizarre. But I would agree that the actor does a decent enough job with what he's given, which
Yeah,
again is not a
just
lot.
just to give props, the actor's name is Sean Tobe or Tube. I think it's Tobe. But you may know him also from Homeland. So
Oh
I think the
God.
idea that like a lot of these actors, they basically always have to play villains, uh, often like
Right.
terrorists, and the fact that they're finally given like a place where he can be like a wise mentor, a kind of Yoda figure, which is in M. Night Shyamalan's words. I think there is something to the idea that M. Night had good intentions with casting. It
Yeah.
just it just really comes across as unfortunate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so Zuko shows up and he's like, "Bring me your elderly, or I'll burn this village to the ground."
Mm-hmm.
The village is made of ice. It
Yeah.
doesn't really burn.
Well, you could certainly melt it.
Yeah, but he doesn't say, "I'll melt this village to the ground." I don't know. I
Or
thought it was
yeah, because
funny.
that's way goofier.
Right. I don't know. I just thought it was funny.
We get a couple of shots of just like random guards. Like this is what I'm talking about though, when it comes to some of the special effects, is that when they are used, I feel like they're a little bit lacking. And then so often they are not used at all. Like these guards that come in, none of them are firebenders. They're all just carrying like these like spears. And they just
Right.
run around goofily in packs of four, like grabbing old people. I don't know. It's just
Right. I
like,
mean,
this is not intimidating. Like, I don't know.
no, not
This is not
really. Yeah,
cool.
it's not great.
It's just very underwhelming.
I guess what happens next is they take Ong and they're like, Zuko's like, "What's your name?" And he's like, "I'm not gonna tell you." So we still don't know his name in the movie. Um,
Even though, oh no, we don't know his name in the movie yet. That's right.
yeah, we've not heard it spoken aloud. So
Terrible.
they take him, and then there's a long conversation between Katara, Sokka, and their grandmother, um, who is also white, and just gives such nonsensical exposition. I can't
Yeah.
even, like, it's
Like,
so disjointed. It's not related to what the topic at hand is at all. There's no descriptiveness to it. It's just like, there's a spirit world. Oh, also the spirits are watching over us, and also the war, and also responsibility, and also your father, and also my friend Hama, who was captured by the Fire Nation.
look out for her in movie number 3.
Right, when that comes out.
Oh my God. So bad.
And so then I guess that's when Eero gives Ong the Avatar test. Is that what happens next?
Yes, yeah. So meanwhile on the Fire Nation ship, well, it's weird because they capture him and then I was like, I'm going to give you a test. And I was like, why? He's like, it won't hurt, I promise. And it's like, I didn't know it would hurt. Why are you saying that? Now
I
I'm
wasn't
nervous.
thinking it would hurt.
Right. And so then they cut back and do the exposition, and then they cut back to do the actual test. Like they don't just give him the test when they first bring it up. There's a whole other scene in between that for no reason.
Right. The macro editing, the back and forth, the cross cutting is just so bizarre.
It truly seems like every directorial choice and like editorial choice in this movie was just like made independently of all of the other choices happening in the film. Like they just seem to come out of nowhere half the time.
Well, it's not like I typically think of M. Night Shyamalan movies as being really poorly paced. Like they're typically pretty slow in the beginning and then they speed up near the end. But like this is just weirdly cross-cutting between two unrelated scenes that don't need to be cross-cut.
Right. Yeah. But so they give him the test, and apparently with the Avatar test that only Iroh knows how to give, like Zuko can't hand him these things. It has to be Iroh, I guess. He puts a candle in front of him, and the flame grows like slightly brighter, just like barely.
No, I think it's supposed to be like it's leaning towards him.
Oh, is that what it is? I thought it was like it just like got bigger, and
I thought it was,
but it was only a little bit.
The flame, whatever, the corona of the flame or whatever you call it, is like
tilted towards him. Okay,
yeah,
sure.
And then the rock stands on end.
But like wildly subtle thing for like a like fire test to do. Like fire is a dramatic element. You would think that it would like burst into like mega flame or something, but whatever. The rock just stands up on its end, and then the water.
No, but that should be like the only test you need. Like the water kind of flowing like to one side of the table.
No, it forms a perfect circle, David.
All right, yeah.
But
like that kind of just happens normally. Doesn't
I know. I like made the joke. I was like, that's just surface tension. Like that's just what water does.
Well, yeah, but the real thing is the rock just kind of standing up on its end. If he can just do that by walking in a room, you know, yeah, he's probably the Avatar.
Right. And it's like, why are these specific, like, why does this not just happen to him all the time when he walks around places? You know, like, what?
I guess because he's not being given a test then.
Like, he has to be told it's a test. And then his, like, Avatar spirit just starts infusing things around him.
I don't know.
It doesn't make any sense.
So when he finds out that they're going to take him prisoner, he's just like, no thank you. And he just leaves.
Yeah.
This is a pretty common thing, is, like, the threat of the Fire Nation is basically nothing.
Yeah. They're non-existent.
He just leaves.
Yep. Just walks away.
He runs, but like it's not like Katara and Sokka have to like swoop down and save him.
Right.
There's, like, no stakes to it. He just kind of bursts out of the ship and is like, "Get out of here, firebenders!" and blows into a brick wall, and then just opens his lighter, like, which he still has for some reason. They didn't take it from him. And he just leaves.
Almost none of the firebenders though actually firebend at him. Like it's all just
because they can't create fire from thin air. That's one of the rules.
Yeah, but you would think then you would have just like fire pits going on your ship or something if that's your like biggest like weapon. And we see them later when Zuko's like training with some people.
Yeah.
But you know, again, this is what I'm saying. Like there's just any time that they can avoid having to pay for more special effects, they're like, okay, great, we'll just do some kung fu for a while and call it that.
Well, the kung fu, I should say the martial arts.
The martial arts.
But
I know.
The martial arts is like, you know, really well performed for, you know, this being such a young kid. The kid.
Oh, the kid. He does fine. But like the adult actors seem
well, they have to be more stilted because they're working with a kid. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, I want to give as much props to this movie as I can because I do think it is truly terrible. Like, I want to be kind that Noah, what's his name? You know, Noah Ringer is a great martial artist, not the greatest actor, but he does incredibly with how much they demand of him for a movie of this size as like his first acting role.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he does fine with a lot of the martial arts. His acting,
right? And then everyone's wearing armor, and they're, you know, they have to kind of hold back because it's a kid. So,
but it's these like weird twirly like skirt like armor. So like it sometimes, instead of making the martial arts look cooler, it just sometimes like obscures what is actually happening.
No, I agree with that. It's the costuming does not necessarily work with the choreography.
Yeah, and again, I think
that's a problem with these big productions.
The choreography is like really stilted and super unnatural, and like, you know, there are kung fu movies that have been doing this better for decades in Hollywood, and it just feels like
for sure, and especially not in Hollywood, especially in, you know, Beijing and Hong Kong, and, you know,
in
other
Egypt.
places, places that, actually have experts in this type of martial arts, who make movies specifically for people who love this kind of martial arts.
Right. And it's just like, there's so much just like random kicking and jumping and flipping that is just like purely for show, but like,
right. Well, that's all fighting is for show.
I know. Yeah, that's true. But like, it's just so disappointing when in Avatar, all of the movements, and this is partly just because how animation works, but like every movement was kind of important, and it did something monumental. And then here it's just like nothing but movement and it does nothing.
Yeah. All right. So then we just kind of cut right to the air temple, right? There's a little interstitial where Katara is giving more voiceover exposition.
But like she says Aang's name here, but then like directly in the scene after that, she's like, "Can I ask your name?" And he's like, "Oh, the monks called me Aang." And it's like, so you didn't even know his name yet? But like, what is happening?
I don't think she does say his name. She just says all this other stuff where it's like, Aang told me that he ran away from the temple and that he fell into the ocean and that he froze himself and that he...
Like, she says Aang's name in the voiceover. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. Let me just check this out real quick. It does. She did say the name.
She does say Aang. Yeah. Yeah. And it's just like, great, cool, whatever.
Why are you like this movie? So that obviously that exposition was to replace a scene that got cut out at some point.
Sure.
A scene which was probably also all exposition. So I guess it's an improvement to make it voiceover instead. But it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make any sense. Like you can have. Yeah, anyway. So they're at the air temple. We finally know Aang's name.
Yeah, which he says off screen.
Yeah. No. He says it then again on screen. That's what I'm saying. He says it in the voice. She says it in the voiceover.
He says it from off screen.
Oh, yeah. Says, the monks
named me Aang.
Yeah.
And that's the first time we hear it. Which you'd think also, the fact that we're pronouncing the names here differently than we pronounced it in the show would mean that you would want to introduce that as early as possible so people can get used to it, the fans.
Right.
I don't think it was necessarily a bad decision to make the names more authentic to Asian pronunciations. Like, this was a mistake that Brian and Mike made. They didn't know the languages that well, so they just pronounced it the way that they thought it would be pronounced. So I think it's okay to kind of make them more authentic to how things would be pronounced. It seems like, M. Night Shyamalan used a comparison to like the fact that we call it Iraq instead of Iraq, which is, how they'll pronounce it. So it kind of makes sense to me that he would want to correct that. But you would want to introduce that like in the first scene with each character, not like halfway through the movie. Yeah.
It again, it's wild that 18 minutes into the movie is when we hear Aang's name said for the first time.
Right.
Like, that's your main character. What are you doing, movie?
It's bad. So we find out what we normally find out at the Southern Air Temple. Monkey Yatso is Momo. Dead. There's Momo. He's a lemur that you can't touch.
Yeah.
But he's there.
Yeah, it's fine. It's just terrible.
You touch him, you die.
So bad.
You find all the statues of the avatars, or no, you don't find that until later in this
Nope, we don't get that until the Northern Air Temple.
That's fine. I think it's fine to rearrange some things
I agree.
That. But I do like the casting of Monkey Yatso.
Do you?
I don't know. I think it's kind of interesting that, if you're in a movie where you're clearly whitewashing the main cast, the least you could do is throw in like some kind of
a dead black guy. Like,
all right, that's a good point.
Like, I don't know. And like, clearly everyone else in that temple is like a monk,
Right. I guess I like the idea that like the monks were, kind of racially diverse because they travel all over the place.
Right, but then you can't just have one black guy. Like that's
one
the
black
problem.
guy, and then he's dead and he doesn't have any lines.
Yeah, no lines. All of his like lines, quote unquote, are just like indistinct flashback talking. Or no, he gets one line where he's like, "Let your emotions flow through you like water." That's his one line. That's it. And we don't even see him say it.
Great.
It's very dumb. Yeah,
so
but
then,
Monkiatsu's dead. Aang freaks out. Katara.
Yeah.
It's kind of.
So Aang's in the avatar state. I mean, it's like weird to look at in live action. I will definitely say that.
Yeah.
And it also means that Aang gets sent into the spirit world, which in this version is like a blurry forest and cave.
Right. I mean, like, I kind of get it. I don't hate it.
Why is it so blurry?
It's very blurry. I agree. I think it's just supposed to be like, it's mystical and ethereal and, sort of otherworldly.
Yeah, it just doesn't work. And then we have this extreme close-up on a dragon head.
So close, you cannot even tell what it is, basically.
Well, that's the point, right? Is that you're supposed to be kind of like, it's mysterious. I don't know what this is, but it's like a dragon. And he doesn't really say anything. He just says hi.
Yeah, he's like, go to a spiritual place and we'll talk more.
Right.
That's it.
No, I'm not going to tell you who I am. He's supposed to like represent Roku, I guess, because he talks and the dragon doesn't talk.
I guess. That's true.
Or he's just a spirit, maybe.
It's just a spirit, I think. Like, Roku doesn't really exist.
Right. It's weird that in a show that wants to make, or in a movie that wants to make things more authentic to like the origins of the ideas, that the avatar is reincarnated. That's the whole point, is it's based on this idea of reincarnation. But I guess that would be too Eastern for this, I guess.
I don't know. I truly don't know. It's all like, this movie is a classic, I think, example of trying to please too many audiences at once,
right.
Like trying to simplify this and make it accessible to people who never watched the show. But then like the main audience for it is, of course, people who watched the show. And then when you add in all of these like strange directorial choices on acting and editing and framing and all this other stuff, critics are not going to respond well to that. So it just leaves you with, who is this movie for? Why does it exist?
For kids who have never seen the show and need to, see something in 3D.
Yeah, I guess. I will say a 6-year-old I know recently watched this for the first time and she seemed into it. So got to give it up to the 6-year-olds.
Cut to our introduction to Admiral Zhao.
Yeah.
Who is pronounced correctly, played by Asif Manvi.
God, what a bad performance.
Oof. I just don't know what they're going for exactly. Because, I mean, Zhao, of course, is a kind of comedic figure.
Right.
So getting a comedian who, can also, I mean, maybe he's supposed to be playing like a bureaucrat type.
But he's like unintentionally funny. Like Zhao, it does not crack jokes. Like it's his overly seriousness that makes him comedic, in the show. And so, it's not like having someone who cracks a lot of jokes like that. Like they could have gotten like a comedian to play Iroh. Like Iroh cracks jokes, Iroh says goofy things. In addition to being like a mentor.
There's a weird moment here where Zhao is like bringing up that Zuko was wearing a Fire Nation uniform, which he's not allowed to do because he's banished.
Exactly. Like, this is my question. Why did they include this scene where...
Because we need to introduce Zhao.
No, that's fine. But, like, why not do it the way the show does? The show did it perfectly serviceable and, like, pretty quickly. He pulls into port. His ship needs repair. Zhao's like, you're stupid. And then Zuko goes, hey, you may be a general, but I challenge you to a fight. And then they have a fight, and we
there wasn't enough time or budget for a fight, so...
It's like, that's just what I'm saying though. Like, why are we replacing like
it's tough.
the generally pretty economical way that Avatar deals with character introductions, with these like bizarre, like
lengthy expositional,
like dinner scenes where he just is like, haha, you're wearing a uniform but you're a little baby, like a costume. It's like,
also another weird little editing thing is that Zhao walks the entire way down a pathway and out of the room before it cuts.
Yes, it's like, if you're looking for things to cut, why are we not cutting here rather than just like leaving out entire, you know, like transition moments? Like, I just, it truly is baffling. What happens next?
Next, we're in the Southern Earth Kingdom suddenly. How long did it take to get here? Why are we here? I'm really not sure. There's absolutely nothing transitional that gets us here, which is just, it's a big issue to me.
Like, not even the voiceover. Like, the voiceover has pretty much dropped away at this point, and it's like, okay,
yeah, it's just
cool.
that there's a text, you know, what do you call those when, you know, it's just like
a location drop,
subtitle,
I guess. I don't know.
Whatever, a location drop, yeah. And it's just, it says Southern Earth Kingdom. Not a city, not a town, just we're here. How long did it take? No one knows.
Doesn't matter.
Whatever.
And I don't mind the fact that they sort of combine like Kyoshi and like Haru's story. You know, I think like,
I mean, you can't put in everything.
Exactly. And I think making them the same place doesn't really hurt anything. And, you know,
well, actually, they shot a whole Kyoshi Warriors sequence. And it was even featured on a poster, but it was one of the things that they decided to cut because the Kyoshi Warriors don't really come back in the first season. They come back in book 2.
The second,
So it's maybe better to introduce them there. It seemed like, you know, Shyamalan had a really solid idea for book 2. And book 2 is a lot more Hollywood, I think, than book 1.
Right.
Because it's less, you know, full of
adventure journey.
Yeah, adventure journey stuff. And it's, you know, the book 1 is just so fillerish that you don't know what to keep and what to cut. It's like all important character introduction stuff. But by book 2, you already know all the characters, so you can just do plot stuff.
Right.
So I bet if they did a book 2, it would probably not be as bad as this, but or maybe it would.
Maybe who knows?
Truly, who knows? But in any case, no Kyoshi Warriors in this one.
No, none of them. Yeah, but they do mention Kyoshi, and they say something very strange about Kyoshi, where they're like,
she loved games.
She loved games and jokes, and Aang's like, me too, which is like the exact opposite of everything we know about Kyoshi from the show.
Right, but I don't know, maybe she liked Pai Sho, I don't know, it's believable to me, but like, it's supposed to be, like, this is introducing, you have to introduce a similarity between Aang and Kyoshi because they're technically the same person, because that's how reincarnation works. It's the same spirit, basically.
Right.
Whatever. They can't have different personalities, I guess. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Then we get the plot of imprisoned, but on land instead of sea, right?
So it just makes a lot less sense. Also, like, the character introduction is, you know, a child just runs up to Sokka and he's like, what's this? He doesn't ask, who are you? What's wrong? He's just like, what's this? And like looks to like left of camera. And then of course we see Fire Nation soldiers running out. And here we do get a little bit of comedy where the Fire Nation soldier is like, he was throwing pebbles at us. It kind of hurt.
Right. Firebender is not very threatening.
Yeah, and like I was like, okay, this feels intentionally funny, but again, it does nothing to solve the problem of these villains don't feel very terrifying.
Right. You know, they do the like Katara accidentally freezing Sokka in ice from, you know, the first episode of the cartoon. Yeah, so but it's still got a lot to learn.
It's like so out of place and really weird because we don't really track Katara's arc at all through this.
No, like there's just no time for it. There's no time for Sokka's arc either, for sure.
Oh yeah. There's no time for any of it. But it's just like we get these weird like nods towards it, but then like if you're gonna do the adaptation, then do the adaptation, you know, like maybe have Katara be like a pretty good bender from the beginning, you know, if we're not going to spend the time.
I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Exactly. Like have Sokka be a leader from the beginning, and then we just follow Aang's journey as, you know, he comes to terms.
I'd even be fine with like random additions that make no sense for the cartoon, but like, what if when she's at the spirit world, the spiritual area, she like it's a vision of her mom or something, because that was something you were doing at the beginning. Or maybe if you change it so that her relationship is all about Sokka now, and they have some kind of, they need to build a sibling bond.
Right, yeah.
Just write something.
Yeah, but
if you're not going to do it what's in the show, then write something.
And instead, they just like try to do bits and pieces of the show, and it all turns into nothing in the end.
It's nothing, yeah. They sent their machines, huge machines made of metal. We're back to the machines again, and we still don't see any machines.
Zero. The only machines we have seen is the ships, and again, we have seen no negative consequences to these machines other than some people being captured.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, it's bad that they're in prison, and I kind of believe that maybe if you were imprisoned for earthbending and maybe they punish people who try to earthbend their way out, that maybe, you know, people would be discouraged enough to feel actually imprisoned there. But it's definitely not as good as putting them on a metal ship in the middle of the ocean where there's no rocks to bend.
Right. And it totally robs the characters of having to be clever. They give like the inspiring speech to Aang, which, you know, I guess fine if he's the one we're focusing on.
He's like,
it's a bad
Earthbenders,
speech.
Why are you acting this way? There's earth right beneath your feet. I'm the Avatar. I ran away, but I'm back now.
It's such a dumb speech, but like it works. And all the earthbenders do some okay earthbending, and then just some like terrible earthbending.
Right. Well, okay, so there's the shot that everybody always points to as like, this is the cardinal sin of this film. The earthbenders, there's like 6 of them, they're stomping on the ground, and we don't see any earthbending come out. And I'd like to say that everyone has been seeing that scene wrong. That those guys are not earthbending. They're just doing what all of the benders do in this movie, which is just stomp around and strike poses because they didn't have the budget to do more rocks.
Right, exactly. No, but people know that. Like, that's what the critique is.
I'm just saying, it's not supposed to be that, like, all those people are bending that one rock that we see. They're not bending anything.
Well, no. What?
You know, it's like all the people stomp and then one rock floats across the screen.
Yeah.
Those group of people are not bending that rock. It's this one other guy who's bending that rock.
Right, but
the thing that those benders bent was in the previous shot where they were bending the wall that came up a second ago. Because you see the guy, he's like getting fire blasted at, and then a rock wall comes up to protect him.
But I thought that was just his dad.
And then it pans over to show a bunch of people stomping around.
Oh, really? I thought it was just his dad.
You're confused because they did it twice. Yes.
Okay.
So the first time, a rock wall comes up, it pans over, and it's his dad. Then another rock wall comes up, they pan over, and it's like 6 guys doing a little dance.
Right.
And then this other guy is like, you know, flexing his arms around, and he throws that one rock.
One rock, okay.
So I just like to say that it's still terrible. You're not describing what is actually happening. The problem with all of the fight scenes in this movie and all of the bending scenes in this movie is that M. Night Shyamalan does them all as continuous tracking shots.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very slow, and the camera's just kind of slightly moving, even though there's a lot of different action set pieces going on the same set. But we're not cutting between any of them.
Right, and we never focus on one in particular, or almost never.
Right. It's just sort of giving you like a broad sense that there is a fight occurring.
Yeah. And again, it's mostly just kicks and flips.
Right. It is mostly kicks and flips. But I also know why M. Night Shyamalan thought that this was a good idea, which is because that's kind of how they shoot things in Hong Kong style kung fu movies.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, but it doesn't work if it's all effects shots as well.
Right.
And it also doesn't work if you have like 20 people fighting. It's supposed to be if there's like 2 people fighting and you can really just in one shot see the whole fight taking place.
Right.
Instead, it's just like panning around all these different set pieces. It's awful. It's unwatchable fight sequences.
Yeah. Ugh, it makes no sense. God, that's my catchphrase in this review. Just, it makes no sense.
Yep. Katara shoves a guy and is like, leave him alone.
Yeah.
And that's all she does in that fight.
Yeah. Sokka does nothing. He like runs into the center of the fight and is like, I guess we can fight now. Are you guys gonna help us? And then the fighting happens.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the fighting, they win.
Everyone just runs away.
Yeah. The Fire Nation just runs and like, that's it.
Like
and
a
then
couple of them get blown around and then they all just leave and like they don't get reinforcements or anything, and it cuts to like just a random street on like the village market, and then we're, like blowing the final 2 firebenders away,
right?
And it's like, how did we get here?
It doesn't make any sense. And so then they find a little shed filled with, they just describe it as bending tools, but it's clearly just like books and like scrolls and stuff.
Right, it's books about bending, I assume.
I know, but like I would not describe those as tools necessarily. You know, it just seems like a strain. I know it's a nitpick.
Gets his only other scene in this movie.
Yeah, he runs around on the books, and then the water bending scroll falls out, which again I think is fine. We don't need the pirates. You know, and Katara gets the waterbending scroll. And then we get a couple of like, there's supposed to be training montages, I guess, where it's like, Ong and I practiced every day. He had some trouble with waterbending though.
Wait, you're skipping my favorite scene.
Oh, which was your scene?
So
what did I skip?
After we get this scroll, a random conversation just suddenly begins.
Okay.
And Sokka's like, we should save other villages. There's tons of villages. And then it cuts to the most extreme close-up of Aang's face in the entire film. And he's like, I need to tell you something. I ran away before I was trained to be the Avatar. So I don't know how to do any of the other elements. And then, like, shouldn't they kind of know that by now? Since he's only used airbending up to this point.
Right. And so they're like, well, we should go to the Northern Water Tribe because they have waterbenders there. And along the way, we can free all these villages.
Because her father died. We can save the villages along the way and start a change in the war in these small villages.
Oh my God. Like all of Sokka's dialogue is just like weird planning exposition.
Yeah, but it's like, it's just like we've switched topics like 3 times in a random conversation that started for no reason. Like there was this wasn't like coming off of the other scene like, hey, waterbending scroll. Aang, do you know how to waterbend? Oh, I don't, Katara. I ran away before I learned how to bend any of the other elements. Well, why don't you come with us up to the Northern Water Tribe? We know some people up there. We can teach you how to waterbend. And he's like, that's a great idea. But along the way, maybe we'll stumble across some villages that he's saving. I don't know. At least that would be like the same information, but in the correct order. Instead of, we should save other villages. I need to tell you something. I don't know how to waterbend. That's okay. Where would you need to go to waterbend? Oh, I don't know. Maybe the North Pole. Yeah, the North Pole has a princess.
Also, let's save some villages.
Insane. Just insane. That's my favorite scene.
Yeah. It's truly wild. So we get to the training montage, and like this again is like they've entirely cut out Katara's storyline, where like she is the one who is jealous of Aang or Ong.
And we see when Katara is practicing, there is absolutely no water moving.
None.
Just dancing.
It's just dancing, and same thing when the two of them are like moving together as well.
There's no budget.
Meanwhile, in the Fire Nation, Asif Manvi is talking to the Fire Lord.
Cliff. His name's Cliff. This is way worse casting than Asif Manvi, is basically what I wanted to say. Like, this guy, first of all, is the least threatening actor I've seen, period.
Yeah.
Like...
you need someone with, like, a strong jawline and, like, scary eyes. Like, You
Yeah, I
can't
mean,
just
like,
get.
part of it's the armor making him look chubby. I don't think he's actually that chubby, but his
I don't think
jawline
he's
is
that
very
chubby, but
round.
he's got a very round face. Like you need
Yeah,
someone with like a evil bad guy square jaw looking face, you know?
right. And, maybe somebody with a deep voice or,
Yeah.
something threatening in some way.
Intimidating about them at all.
No. But this is where we get introduced to the plan to kill the moon spirit, which is
Yeah.
not something that has been brought up before. This is our first time hearing about it. And Zhao's just like, I found these scrolls. We
In a
haven't translated
library.
them, but I think they might hold the key to killing the moon spirit.
Ugh. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
God. So that goes nowhere, and I guess we're thinking like, okay, if you kill the moon spirit, you can go to the North Pole. I guess they're trying to explain why they go to the North Pole in the first place.
right. Instead of just being like because like that's
Chasing
the
the Avatar.
thing is like they're chasing the Avatar, but like they also in this version they're like they want to get rid of all the spirits or something, and like their world domination plan is like less clearly world domination and like seems to be more like fuck the spirits a little bit, you know, and it's
We want to take control of the spirits. They're
right.
perverting the nature of the world.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just strange and muddled, you know.
The next thing we see is Zuko and Iroh in disguise, and they're just sort of talking generally about like, hey, you don't have to capture the Avatar. And he's like, this is why I have to capture the Avatar.
Oh my God.
And he just has like a little exchange with like this 8-year-old, just sort of being like,
oh my God.
Hey, why don't you tell the story?
Yeah.
I'm sick of telling this one. You tell it.
Yeah, he's like, do you know the story of the Fire Lord's son, the prince? And he's like, oh yeah, he's that guy who got beat up by his mean dad. He's like, yep, you nailed it, kid. Get out of here. And that's it.
And that's why I can't go back to the Fire Nation.
And Iroh, I can only imagine, ended that scene going, yeah, I knew that.
I was there in the flashback. This is one of the only flashbacks that we actually see visually, though. We don't see, we don't see Aang running away until much later. And we don't see him get frozen at all in the whole movie.
Yeah.
That's weird.
It's all very weird. But yeah, so... just letting you know we're at an hour and 4 minutes.
Okay. Blaze through some of the rest of this. We can cut some of this out if we want.
Okay.
So we finally see his flashback too, which, we're seeing him running away from home. And when he thinks about his dead family, that makes him a better waterbender. So that's what we're learning here.
Yeah. And he finds out from looking at Sokka's maps that they're like close to the Northern Air Temple, and is like, can I just go there for like a day, please? And instead of being like, yeah, let's all go together, he just like leaves in the middle of the night again and kind of runs away to it. And then he meets, instead of, the Northern Air Temple being like home to a bunch of people, he just meets this like one guy who's like, oh, I love hanging out here and looking at the old ruins.
The truth is that he's an Earth Kingdom spy.
Yeah.
Who is contracted by, I think he's supposed to be more like the old guy from Imprisoned. Remember that guy?
Yeah, a little bit.
So he's like an informant for the government. And so he's like, these are the statues of the avatars. This is Roku. Sorry, you're going to jail.
Yeah, like he pulls out a knife and Ong is like, a knife. And it's like, you have magic air powers. Why are you scared of this knife?
Right.
Plus, like,
So,
martial arts.
Right. So obviously this is the Blue Spirit episode that's happening.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So he gets captured by a bunch of archers and Zhao. And, he's captured and Zhao's like, we won't kill you because you'll just regenerate and then we'll have to search for you again, which is taken directly from the show.
But also this is where we get another Roku dragon vision.
Yeah.
And the dragon is like, I've seen a vision of the moon turning red. Go to the Northern Water Tribe. Where we just established that was where he was always going.
Right. It's like, why is this dragon also, like, why is this scene here? What is it doing? What is its purpose?
Oh my god.
We're already going there.
The Blue Spirit shows up and he sneaks in on like a tractor or something. I don't know. This is the first machine that we see.
Yeah.
The first thing that we can generously call a machine.
Right. But yeah, so he sneaks in, and what do you think of this costume design?
I don't know. The hair definitely makes it more of a disguise than just like a mask and like a skin tight jumpsuit. But I don't know. It looks more like a spirit to me than I guess than it might have otherwise.
Yeah, but there's just like so much hair.
It's a good point. And what do you think about this escape scene? Like, what is your take?
I mean, there are parts about it that I like. There are parts about it that are like feel goofy, or that I feel like I don't know how to feel about them. Like when the first guard kind of sees the other two guards all tied up, like they're kind of hanging there by their arms and they look kind of dead. And I'm like, is this supposed to be like
funny?
Like funny, scary, bad? Like I just truly don't know what my reaction is supposed to be.
Similar, like I don't know if this is supposed to be a funny scene, is like Ong goes to like the Be the Leaf style spinning canvases training ground thing, that we see in Korra a lot. And then is like using them to like hit the firebenders. But it's like they have fire. We see them firebending. They could just burn the thing down.
Yeah, but like they're barely firebending. Like that's the problem in this like action fantasy adventure, is that a lot of the action is not fantasy. It's just like straight up action. Like it would be like if in Harry Potter they were waving their wands around a bunch, but like only every third time did it cast a spell, and when it did, it was like a little,
Whatever. In this version, Ong goes back to help the Blue Spirit who's about to get captured.
Yeah.
Which is different from the show, and I think would actually be, I don't know, I think this would have actually been an improvement in the show, but it's very slight. And then that's when Zuko threatens to slice off his head in order to get out.
Mm-hmm. And they all get out.
The mask falls off. We see that it's Zuko, who Ong has only interacted with once at this point, and it wasn't even really much of a fight.
Right.
But
then here's the interesting thing. He does not say, like, he doesn't have the little moment where he's like, we could be friends, I think. And like this is an important moment where, this is the only moment where that makes sense, especially in this movie where they've not interacted a ton. But he does
and it's
say
weird that
line.
They still have the scene because it cuts to the forest the next day.
Yeah. Like it's just weird because they have that line come in later where it makes no sense.
Yeah, it is a weird place to put that line. So when Zuko goes back to Iroh, Iroh's like, I told them you were on vacation with a girl.
Yeah.
Which is such an unnecessary line that I cannot even begin to talk about it. So let's move on.
Just makes no sense, yeah. And then Zuko goes to take a nap, and then the ship explodes.
Yep. And then Iroh, after the fact, goes up to Zhao and is like, why'd you blow up my son / nephew? And he's like, do you think that he's the... Or, sorry, no, it's Ozai says, you think my son is the Blue Spirit? Yeah. And there's like a long, weird pause. And
where
then
Asif Mandi just
Mandi
makes like the most strange faces. Like his facial acting in this, I truly do not know what emotion he is going for in any given scene. And that's true for a lot of the actors.
I don't know, man. And then he's just like, I think he's the Blue Spirit. Cut to the Northern Water Tribe.
They arrived, woohoo! And
so
then
we've been in like 4 locations in this whole movie. At least Aang and Katara and Sokka have. They've only been in like 3 places, and we just teleport from frozen wasteland to tropical paradise to northern temple to another frozen wasteland.
North Pole. Yeah. And then it's crazy to me because this last like section of the movie takes up literally half of it. Like, everything
but not much
else
happens, so we'll be blazing through it.
Yeah, almost nothing happens. It's all just, it's like the last 3 episodes of season 1. They get to the Northern Water Tribe. Sokka gets a crush on the princess, which we hear about through exposition. They have like one awkward scene where she explains why her hair is white so that later when she turns into the moon, we're not like, why the fuck did that happen? And then like the Fire Nation is like, we're coming, we're gonna attack.
Right. There's another exposition scene about killing the moon spirit. I don't know why we need 2 of these. Zhao tells it to Ozai and then later tells it to Iroh. So it's so stupid.
Though Zhao does have a great line as the invasion is beginning where he's like, don't worry, we won't hold your failure at Ba Sing Se against you. Your son died there, right? And Iroh is kind of like, yeah. And he's like, also, so sorry to hear about your nephew burning and dying in that terrible ship fire. And it's like, oh, so you just like definitely set that fire. Like, you could not be more obvious.
Well, I mean, in the show, he's also very upfront about it, but Iroh is like, he was a traitor, kind of pretending to be, against him because he knows that Zuko's still alive.
Well, no, he doesn't do that in the show. He's just kind of like, yes, it was a terrible tragedy. And
that's like, right. Yeah, I'm mixing it up with something else.
Where like they both still know, but like they're a little bit more coy about it. Whereas here, it's just like this, like, it's like if I walked up to you after setting your house on fire going, oh, so sorry to hear that your mom died in that fire. Like, what the fuck? Like, why? What are you doing? Like in the show, he blames it on pirates, and like here he's just like, yeah, crazy ship fire. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, they all start prepping for war. The snow turns black. I thought that was done pretty well.
Yeah, at least they included that little visual element. Most of the other things that are told visually are just done with exposition. So that's how it's got to be. We go to the spirit place because Aang's just like, I need the secret to defeat the Fire Nation. I'll bet it will be in the spirit world.
I mean, that is kind of how it goes in the show, though. Like, he's like...
No, they were looking to find the identity of the moon and the ocean spirits. Like, it was a very specific goal. This is much more general.
Well, that's true. They were looking specifically for those spirits, but then they were also... Aang was like, maybe the spirits will give me power to unleash crazy spirit juju on them.
Right, but you're looking for a specific pair of... I don't know. It's different to me. So they go to the spiritual place, which is lovingly recreated. It looks almost exactly like the show.
Yeah, I like also the fact that it is in like this cave area instead of this kind of exposed like crevasse area that it is in the show. I don't know. I like this cave setting a little bit more.
Okay. There's a fight with Zuko after Aang just sort of immediately goes into the spirit world. I get it.
Which, like, fine. Yeah.
Zuko
but like the fight with Katara, yeah, it's awful. And just like the bending is bad. Like it's just not a good fight.
And then we have also the firebenders are starting to attack the
north
embankments.
Yeah.
And we have them coming up from the ground with little drill hats.
Yeah, it's weird.
So that's the other machines, the Fire Nation and their machines.
Their little drill hats. Yeah.
They don't like come in on tanks, they ride on lizards.
I do think the lizards are really cool. Like the lizards climbing the wall. It works for me. I'm like, this is cool. I'm into it.
It's basically like the rhino lizards, but without the rhino parts.
Right. That's
so
fine.
It's
I don't
fine
care.
as an adaptation. But it's weird to me that these guys are defined as like the machine guys. They fight with machines, and we fight with natural spiritual abilities.
Right.
No, the firebenders are fighting with spirit magic too, and they're riding on dragons. You know, like why is that different? Just because they have bigger boats?
Yeah, it's again the muddled messaging of who these bad guys supposedly are.
Yeah. So Hung is in the spirit world for the final time, and so this is where we learn what the message of the movie is, I guess. And it's like,
oh, it doesn't make any sense.
You're not dealing with your responsibility for your family's deaths. You're too angry at yourself. You need to let it go. The Avatar isn't supposed to hurt others. Use the ocean to hurt them.
Okay, but here's the thing.
So it's like four contradictory messages.
Yes. But in addition, you left out the fact that they're like, you're not dealing with this, but you need to let that go. And it's like, well, that sounds like not dealing with it. Like, what are you telling me to do?
No, I'm not. I think that you can say that, like, not letting something go can be not dealing with it and holding on to pain.
Right, but I think you also have to be like,
you're
acknowledge
too angry,
it.
but also you're not dealing with your responsibility. You need to take responsibility for their death. But you're too angry, and also don't use that anger to hurt others. Just use the oceans to show them the power of water without hurting them, because avatars don't hurt people.
But they do.
But they do.
Which is always my thing about, Aang being in the Avatar state here, is that he kills a ton of people. He sinks a bunch of ships.
This is like the exposition just is totally incoherent. It doesn't make sense as a message. It has nothing to do with Aang's arc or why he ran away or, taking responsibility for being the Avatar or anything like that. It's just totally irrelevant.
Meanwhile, Zuko is monologuing out a window.
Right. He does that in the cartoon too, but he's saying something interesting.
Well, he's saying some of the similar things that he says in the cartoon, but he's not just staring angstily out a window. And like that kind of monologuing only works when you give that scene the space to develop and you're trapped in a blizzard. What else are you gonna do but fucking monologue to a knocked out dude you've captured?
Right. I mean, in the cartoon, Zuko's talking about I guess I'm just not.
I'm a survivor. Yeah.
I'm a survivor. I'm not a very lucky person. My dad said, Azula, my sister, was
born lucky.
Born lucky, but I'm lucky to be born. And this is my father says that I'm like my mother, and he likes my sister more than me.
Yeah.
I know. And Aang just leaves.
Hold on, there's a car alarm. Okay, it stopped. Sorry, I was just picking it up.
Then the moon happens.
Yeah. Then Zhao shows up in the spirit sanctuary, kills the fishy, everything turns red. And then we see some cool firebending finally from Iroh, because that's the other conceit we didn't really talk about in this movie, is that the firebenders need a source of fire to bend from.
Right. Unless you're really good at it, which is just so much more confusing.
Yeah, or it's that's what they say is because, they're Sozin's Comet, which will come in 3 years, which, I get it. You need to stretch that adaptational time because your kids are going to age and people are going to be like, this didn't take place in a year. What are you doing?
Right.
But, Sozin's Comet will allow all firebenders to create fire from their chi instead of just the excellent ones.
Right.
But I feel like it's also supposed to be that the more spiritual a character is, the more easily they're able to bend with their chi. That's also part of it. and that, you know, firebenders are kind of alienated from their spirituality on purpose, and like that's why they need sources of fire. But it's just like a lame conceit that, like,
it just is so, I don't think that it's like that lame. It's just so overly complicated that, like, okay, what are the firebenders' abilities in the show? They can
right.
shoot fire from their hands. That's basically it until book 2. But in
No,
this
I wrote
version,
just some mouth breathing, right? Or
okay,
no, that's
so
until
you can
book
shoot
2.
it from your
Right, you're right.
hands, your feet, or possibly your mouth.
Yeah,
But
that's it.
that's it. And then in this version, you can like heat your blood with chi, and you can
Melt
sometimes
ice.
move fire and sometimes make fire bigger, but you can't make your own fire unless you're really good at it.
Right.
Or you have a comet, or it's
right.
so
It's
much
just
more complicated in terms of rules.
It's really crazy. So, you know, they do the fight. Aang wakes up and pieces out on Zuko.
Yeah, after doing like a little Looney Tunes routine where he does like hiding behind him, but it doesn't work because it's not animated.
Right,
it's Looney Tunes.
It's so dumb. Or you know, it doesn't actually involve him like moving into his blind spots. He just sort of like leans a little bit, you know.
Right. Zuko is literally just like not looking over his shoulder. He's just looking back and forth in front of himself.
But then, like, he clearly realizes Aang is there. They fight. Aang escapes.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Then Katara shows up and turns Zuko into a popsicle.
Right. But first, Katara is just like, calm down, Sokka. We'll find him. And then suddenly, they're both right there. And Sokka and Yue were just standing there saying nothing and doing nothing.
Yeah. Entirely useless.
And then that's when the line happens.
Oh, you got to do the line.
We could be friends, you know, as Aang just walks out of the room.
Which doesn't make any sense, because he's just tried to capture you. Like, and kill you. And, like, this is not the time. It just wasn't
built up at all. Yeah.
Right. Like, that's why I'm saying that line only makes sense coming after the one time that they're forced to work together, where, you know, Aang could be like, okay, listen, I'm vibing a little bit. Clearly we both don't like that guy. What if we were friends? But, you know, nope, just while he's a popsicle. And of course, like, Zuko is just like, and doesn't respond, because how do you respond to that?
How do you respond?
It's beyond the pale.
One thing that's really challenging if you want to try it is to try and figure out where Appa and Momo are in any given scene, because they're too expensive to include in just regular shots. Yeah. So they're only going to be there if they need to be there. And otherwise they're just off in nether space.
Yeah, they basically don't exist. I think they come back at the end. Are they in any of these fight scenes?
I don't know. Kind of. They're sort of off in the distance in one shot.
Okay, one shot in the distance, real small. There are some really cool fight sequences, and like this feels like the fight that they spent the most time and budget on, you know? Like, it felt choreographed, it felt fluid, it was visually interesting for at least parts of it, if not the whole time. You know, like, there's definitely parts where it's like they're just clearly running on like sets upstairs.
They're all on sets. None of this was shot on location.
I know.
The Southern Water Tribe was shot in Greenland, but this was not. This was just shot on a soundstage, which is fine.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not knocking that. It's just like there's certain scenes during the sequence where I'm like, I just like know that this is not a real place anywhere. You know, like this just breaks the illusion. I just know that this is a set of stairs that someone has designed, and it's not like an actual staircase that someone would choose to build for a battle.
Zhao kills fish.
Yeah, he kills the fish. It's all red.
He says, "We are the gods now," because like Iroh is telling him to not do it, and he's
like all conflicted, but like not, and it's like it just looks like Asif Mamvi ate a bad burrito or something and like needs to get out of there, but also needs to deliver his lines. And it's just, it's really bad.
We are the gods now. And so then So then immediately afterward, there's like no time to mourn or for the fight scene to get more drastic. I guess it gets a little more drastic for like a couple cutaways, but almost immediately we just cut to Yue, who, by the way, played by Seychelle Gabriel, the voice of Asami from Korra.
Oh, dang. There you go.
I just thought that was worth noting at some point.
Yeah.
So she stuck around with this franchise even after it did not treat
Did
her
her
very
dirty. Yeah.
well. But she just immediately is like, I sacrificed my life to the spirit, and then
Right, and she and Sokka have like a really dumb conversation where he's like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "It's my responsibility. Bye."
It's time to show the Fire Nation that we believe in our beliefs as much as they believe in theirs.
That was my favorite line. I just like literally paused the video and laughed. I could not. We believe in our beliefs. Yeah,
as much
I hope
as they believe in their beliefs.
Like, okay, sure. That doesn't mean anything. Like, what?
Man.
It's so weird. But yeah, so then she
There's
dies. The
one
moon
Zuko-
is returned.
Yeah. The moon's back. It wasn't ever really gone for that long. But,
Yeah.
It's back.
We also never really talk about how the moon being gone actually affects the waterbenders, really.
No, we see like one shot of them not being able to water.
Right, but we
don't
see
really see anybody dying because it's a kids movie.
Right, we see one shot of someone's bending not work, but there's like almost no build-up. It's just like, we should destroy the spirits because we love to destroy spirits. You know,
they say it all the time that like waterbenders get their power from the moon. They say this like 5 times.
Yeah.
But they don't specify like exactly that it would take away their bending, but then we see it, so you know, it makes sense.
But again, it's only in one scene, so it feels like I would not blame a person from coming out of that movie and going and like, why did they kill the moon? I don't understand.
No, I agree. I understand. That can be confusing.
Yeah.
There's a Zuko Zhao fight, but Iroh is just like, no, you're better than this, Zuko.
Yeah, they don't even have the fight. Like, they trade like 2 kick punches and then peace out.
I think it's supposed to be like their Agni Kai from, episode 3. But,
well, I mean, they do have the final fight in the show.
No, in the show, it's like they have their final fight, but it's interrupted by like a spirit eating him, and then it's.
But the spirit
Zuko
hasn't
needs
even
to save him. But this one, it's the one where Iroh is talking him out of it, and saying like, "You don't need to attack.
Prove yourself. You're better than him." Yeah.
And then he's like, "You stand alone, and that has always been your great mistake." And it's weird because I don't, Asif Manvi has a giant army. He's never stood alone until now. And Zuko is kind of a loner. He's been alone the whole movie. You're right. Like, it's weird. And then we just see a graphic drowning scene, which was apparently really tough to render. But they succeeded in the challenge of showing a man drowning to death on screen. Right, like they just have 4 waterbenders just murder him instead of like spirit justice. Yeah, it's weird. Well, there's no spirit in this one to do the justice. That's true. Going to the spirit world is just to get the advice that he needs to show them the power of water, which he just needs to do. I will say, the big wave is kind of cool. I don't hate the big wave. The big wave was cool, and I like the fact that instead of washing everybody away with it, he just kind of holds it there. So everyone's like, we should just go. Tactical retreat. But then they try to leave, but they can't because it's a giant tsunami wall of water. And then he lets some of them can't leave, but the other ones can. And then once he lowers the wave, everybody else, I assume, just runs away or gets captured. Yeah. And then that's it. That's like, there's wrap up, I guess. Well, wait, before he waterbends the wall, doesn't he have another flashback to repressed emotions that make him cry? This is how he comes to terms. He follows the advice. He has his flashback to being with Monk Gyatso and learning from him, and we see a couple. And then he dances his feelings out, is what it looks like. Because it's not like the waterbending moves don't seem to really correspond to lifting the wave. Mm-hmm, it's just like he's doing a lot of Tai Chi, and so it just kind of looks like he's dancing his feelings out. Yeah, and this is where, in the last act of this frickin' movie, we see the flashback where he actually runs away, and he's like, I forgive me for that. And then he can waterbend. Right. No, we don't. I don't think that's even it. I think we don't see him running away until the next set of flashbacks, which happens in like 2 minutes, because everyone bows to him. And
No, that
earlier
happens
in the
after.
movie,
No,
yeah,
that
this is
hap-
after the firebenders leave,
right.
and we have our final flashback, I guess,
No,
because
no,
all
no.
the
That
waterbenders.
that flashback happened earlier, and then when he does the final bow at the end, he just like does the weird like gesture at them to show that like he can accept being the Avatar now. Like we had that
Right.
flashback when he was getting over things before the
Okay. Yeah, you're
water
right.
wall.
Yeah. Sorry, but
No,
when
you're
he's
right. You picked up on the symmetry of the
right, the
scenes. Like
symmetry. Yeah,
you nailed it.
and they're very close together too, so
Yes.
it's a little confusing. But yeah, he
Exactly. It's like, why is that scene that we're supposed to know is like a big deal? Like, if this is the lead up, if this is the end to your movie, that flashback needs to be in the first act. You know, like,
right.
why is it here?
I'm guessing that they did have it earlier as well, but they had it twice for symmetry. And so they probably, somebody in the room said, like, why do we have to show this flashback twice? We're trying to cut down on time. And then it got
Right.
cut. But it doesn't make any sense
Who
now.
knows? Yeah, it's wild.
But he bows back this time.
Yeah, and
So that's
that's it.
good.
And then we get our coda, our epilogue,
Yeah.
where because we're definitely gonna make another one of these guys. We have the Fire
Right.
Lord telling Azula, basically the speech from the end of season 1, where he's like, "Iroh's a fool, Zuko's a traitor,
Right.
or
But
Zuko's a
also,
failure, Iroh's a traitor, and Zhao is a fool. I need
right.
you to go capture these people." And
Right, but
then
also Sozin's comet is coming in 3 years, and it will give all
yes,
firebenders the ability to be firebenders.
right. And so then we see Azula, and she makes a bunch of really weird facial expressions and then goes, "Yes, father, I will," and then continues to make weird facial expressions, and then credits roll. And that's the
Right.
movie.
Another couple of points that I just want to make before we wrap up.
Yeah.
None of the music is in any way inspired by or related to the music from the show.
Nope.
I don't
It
understand
feels
that
like
choice.
Star Wars music almost. It's just like so Hollywood,
Well, it's a composer that M. Night has worked with on a lot of his other movies.
Sure.
They have a really great working relationship, but I just don't know why they wouldn't at least try to take inspiration instrumentally
Yeah.
or even just like taking the melody and sprinkling it in places as an Easter egg,
Right. Or if you're going for authenticity, why do we have all these like very like Western sounding orchestral pieces? Why are we not using some of the native instruments and soundscapes from these cultures? Like we're changing names, we're doing all these other things to quote unquote make it more authentic. Like, why would the music not also be a part of that?
Yeah. It's just lame. The other thing is we kind of left out that there was a weird subplot about how being the Avatar means you're not allowed to raise a family.
Yeah, or have family? Question mark.
Or have a family.
It's like brought up a couple of times, but there's no through line to it, and like it's not what the ending is about.
It's described as the reason why he ran away, not because he was afraid of the responsibility of having to save the world, but because you don't get to have a family if you're the Avatar.
Well, I mean, that's sort of what it is in the show, is that, like he felt like he was going to be separated from the only person who
he was also
had that connection with.
He was terrified by the responsibility. He's like, I'm only a kid. I can't do this. I can't fight, in a war. I can't protect the balance of the earth. And also, you can't take me away from my home. I don't want to leave my home. It's a lot of weird.
Right, but the war
in this
one
one,
wasn't really.
I want to have a family someday. I want to get married and have children.
Right.
It's like Anakin Skywalker. That's why he leaves.
It is. Oh, it's so weird. It's so weird. I don't know why they made that choice. Any other last thoughts or feelings?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if this is true, but I was looking at the trivia on IMDb, and somebody says that during one of the battle scenes between the Fire Nation and the Water Tribe in the north, that the camera pans and there's a Fire Nation soldier just fighting with nobody.
I would believe it. That's what I'm saying about the sloppy choreography. It's just.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think that the film is a good cautionary tale. I think it is kind of worth checking out. It's not entertainingly bad. It's not.
No.
It is bad and not in an entertaining way.
Yeah.
But I still think that if you're like an aspiring filmmaker, it's a good like how to not.
Yeah, exactly.
How to not. For a lot of things, for dialogue, for character, for acting,
editing,
for choreography, for editing.
For script, for basic script writing, you know.
Hey, here's the thing, like, if you wanted to make this movie, like, what would you need to include from the show, like, bare bones? You need, like, the first 2 episodes.
Right, you need the intro.
You can cut out, like, the penguin sledding and the hanging out in, like, the Fire Nation ship that's booby-trapped.
Right.
You need, like, maybe about half of the Southern Air Temple stuff, and maybe you can end it with, like, the vision from Roku, you know, when he sees a statue of himself.
Right.
You know, you can cut out the part of the winter solstice thing where he goes to the winter solstice Fire Nation temple thing.
Right. I mean, I think you can have that. I think you can honestly cut out, or if not cut out the Haru or the Kyoshi warrior stuff, have that happen at like the northern air temple.
Well, I think you need something early where he like inspires people to fight. So I think you can just do all of Imprisoned. That's only 20 minutes.
Yeah.
You know? But you could just do it verbatim, like word for word.
And
then
faster.
At the end, yeah, you could do it faster by cutting out some of the
goofy jokes and things. Yeah.
Tracks. You know, maybe once they get on the ship, they immediately come up with the plan to get the coal instead of having one failed plan first.
Right.
Okay, and then, you know, cut directly to the Blue Spirit. Maybe while they're trying to leave the prison,
and gets captured.
Somebody gets captured, yeah, and so they have to do that.
Right.
And Blue Spirit, if you take out the frogs, that's only like 15 minutes.
Right.
And then you just do all of the Siege of the North, which is only 40 minutes.
Right.
And then that's, add it all up, that's only 2 hours.
Right, and maybe add a couple of scenes in the Fire Nation in there.
No, I'm saying, like, this is with the B-plots, you know?
Oh, okay,
like I said,
yeah.
That, you know,
so you have the Agni
Kai. You're only cutting out some of it, yeah.
Right.
So you have the Agni Kai, you have, you know, Zuko you have Zuko busting Aang out, and you have fighting, you know, later, and then it all works. And you haven't cut out much of anything.
Right. You know,
it's still 2 hours.
Yeah.
The goal to make it 100 minutes. I mean, that's just too much.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. This is the ultimate cautionary tale.
I mean, I think it's also interesting because at that point in time, you know, like Avatar was really long, and like people, you know, people loved it and thought it was visually stunning, but they were like, but it was kind of long, you know. And now we live in a world where every blockbuster is at least 2 hours, if not 2.5 hours, you know.
Right.
So like, if this was made now, they might have had that extra leeway to leave some more things in there that might have.
Right. Well, we know that this is going to be made into a Netflix series.
Yes.
Which we'll probably end up recapping once that comes out. Never.
It's gonna come out. What do you mean?
It'll take a long time. We might not be around or alive at that point.
I hope we are. I hope the world sticks around long enough to give me a good Avatar live action remake. Right.
Well, until then, this will be the last Airbender, the last Avatar, the Last Korra that we have.
Hope you've really enjoyed this series. We hope you enjoyed this little bonus episode. And we'll be talking to you guys another time.
Yeah, and we'll be posting a poll, I think.
Yeah.
There's some kind of place where you can comment what you'd like us to recap next, since this is really the last one.
Yeah, we're so interested to hear what you would want to see next from us.
Check us out. You can tweet at us at Talking Tropes. We will link the YouTube channel where you can watch the video version of this podcast if you're listening to it. And if you're watching this and you want to listen to the audio version alone, or some of our older ones which don't have video, you can check us out. We're syndicated all over the place. We're on Spotify. We're on
iTunes,
Castbox,
SoundCloud.
iTunes, SoundCloud. Anywhere that podcasts are sold, just look for Talking Tropes.
All right. Flameo, my good hotman.
Flameo, indeed.